So again, I'm going to pass the microphone to Emily. And as we move along, let's have a great training again. And the format is going to be kind of starting from the point of having it out of the crate, what needs to be done then. So I'm going to pass the presentation over to Emily.
All right, thank you all for joining us. So you've got your SPIFE Nexus, it's out of the box. The first thing you're going to encounter is your shipping bracket. This is the first thing that will need to come off. This is a one-time ordeal. This shipping bracket will be accessible through our side panel over here. It's just an access hatch. There's no need to adjust the camera, Sharon. But this piece will actually sit up behind the gantry, and it holds both the pipette assembly and the claw in place. And it's held by a couple of screws and a couple of zip ties. So just to let you know, it's there. It's flagged with a bunch of orange tape. It's not hard, or it's not easy to miss, but just to let you know, it is there, keeping everything in place. You don't want to turn the machine on with this still in place. So that'll be the first thing you take off. But once that's off, the first thing you're going to do with your SPIFE Nexus before you even turn it on or get it running will usually be to level it. So in our kit, we've provided a bubble level, just a circular bubble level that will be set in the middle of the platen, right on the electrophoresis platform in the middle right here. Do you have a, we're getting video of close up right
on underneath.
Okay.
Yeah. There we go. All right. Can you guys see that a little bit better now? Great. So this little bubble level, perfect, is provided in the kit, and it will just sit on the middle of the platen. And from there, the feet of the unit down here, there are 4 feet, each of them adjustable by a 1/2-inch wrench, and they can just be adjusted up or down to level the machine. You want to make sure that your machine is level before beginning your calibrations, because if your machine is not level, that can mess up the rest of your, of course, with all of our machines, we level them first because it affects electrophoresis. So once the machine is leveled, you can go ahead and plug in your bottle kit. So that'll be the next thing we look at. So you'll have a bottle kit that comes with a bunch of these tubes, which are quick connect. Can you see? Yes, they're quick connect. And you'll receive 6 of these. They're all labeled with the numbers of the ports that they go to. And they're your standard solutions, your DI, your saline, your destain, your clear wash. And then you'll have 2 lines that go to your waste, one for waste and one for overflow. And then you also have your waste vat full sensor. So this wire from the vat comes up and connects into this port in the machine to alert you every time your waste is full. If you drain into another system rather than using our waste vats, then we also provide a plug to plug in here so that the machine will never think that the waste is full. Other than that, we have, all right. Other than that, those are our fluid ports. And then we have some ports here where we plug in the USB for the touch screen. The SPIFE Nexus is a touch screen. And then we have the power for the screen, the display for the screen. All of these will come with your monitor along with the arm that mounts it to the pole here on the side of the machine, which swivels and actually has a really good range of motion. You can come all the way back here and go all the way out front. If we actually want to switch to, oh no, that's good. Yeah, so it swivels pretty far, and it can get out of the way very easily no matter where you need to be. All right, so that's most of for the plugs on this side. That's pretty much it. Just plugging up your display and all of your fluid on this side. We also have extra ports for devices that you may want to plug in, as well as for the wireless mouse. So this is our little connector for our wireless mouse right here, which will also come with your screen and with your arm. And the only other thing that needs to be plugged in on the SPIFE Nexus is the power cable, which is on the other side. No need to show that. It's a standard power cable. All right, once you have all those things plugged up, now we'll get to the good part.
Right. So once you have all those things plugged up, you can start up your SPIFE Nexus program. It takes a moment to initialize, but once it does, the lights inside will come on, and this is the screen that you'll see. You'll notice, let me switch to a different, there we go. So that's the screen that you'll see. Once you've logged in, and notice at the top you have a SPIFE Nexus toolbar, and then right underneath it you have your standard Quick Scan Touch Plus toolbar. These are two programs. Your Quick Scan Touch Plus runs inside of the SPIFE Nexus program. So up here, you can up at the very top, you'll control what the SPIFE Nexus does, and then all of your scan editing will happen just as you're used to it happening with the toolbar below it. All right. So now I'm going to go ahead and show you about calibration will be the next thing you'll do once you get it out of the box and set up. Yeah, you can switch it. So next I'm going to show you about calibration. And calibration is very easy and it's modular with the maintenance menu that we have available. Actually, I think I'm going to switch back to 2 because that allows you to see the screen. So how I got here, just the maintenance menu and test calibrate. A warning that this should only be done by professionals, of course. And then we have each of these tabs for each of the different components.
Sorry, Emily. It's very staticky and scratchy. I cannot hear you.
Okay.
Oh,
Is that better?
no. I don't know if other people are having the same problem or not,
Echo sounds, okay.
but it's now echoing.
That one is okay. How does it sound now?
Maybe count.
Count 1, 2, 3, 4.
Feedback loop. Yeah, Shangli says the same thing. Okay, so it's not just me. Thank you for
All right, is that a little bit better? Can you hear me now? No, not really. Not really. All right, is it just too loud?
Yeah, maybe it's too loud.
Okay. Maybe I can just whisper the whole presentation. How's that? All right, how's that? 1, 2.
Okay, yeah, I don't want to be picky or waste time. I mean, it was better before, and then I don't know what changed.
Okay.
And I don't know about anybody else, but I cannot, the screen that we're looking at, it's not clear, so.
All right, so you can't see.
I can't read anything on it.
Good to know.
So.
Okay. We can switch to the camera and see if that helps. Do you want to switch to camera 1?
Oh, that's a lot better.
That's better? Okay.
And you sound better too.
And what was, I sound better too? Excellent.
Yes, ma'am. Okay,
All right.
thank you.
Much better. I mean, it's on a stand. I think it'll be okay right there. Thank you.
Okay, yeah.
All right. So this is our calibration menu. I'm not sure if any of you saw how I got there, so I'll just cancel out. So this is the SPIFE Nexus toolbar up at the top. I'm not sure if you probably couldn't follow along if you couldn't read it. So this top bar controls the SPIFE Nexus, whereas, let me tilt this up a little bit. Yeah. Top bar controls the SPIFE Nexus, whereas this secondary bar down here is your Quick Scan Touch Plus, which you're probably used to dealing with. So to start calibration, and I'm just going to do a quick overview of calibration, you'll receive instructions for all of this. So I'm not going to go into detail, but you have your different tabs for different things to be calibrated. And when you get it, you'll mostly be calibrating your claw, your tube transport, and your pipette. And it's just a check to make sure that nothing has shifted during transport and that your machine is good to go. There are a few sensitive calibrations that I'd like to point out, namely your spreader tip. And that spreader tip, I'll show you where it is inside of the machine. Your spreader tip is used for your IFEs, and it sits right here. And this is actually in this machine what helps to distribute your antisera. So the pipette will come and pick up this little piece, and instead of injecting your antisera into lanes, it actually lays it down in straight lanes for you using this spreader tip. So that's one of the more sensitive calibrations because it is such a small piece. But other than that, there are a few things you want to watch out for, but mostly it's a pretty robust calibration. So another thing to calibrate carefully is probably the just making sure that you use all of the jigs that we give you. So we're going to send you a complete jig kit, and those will be very important. Oh, thanks. Those will be very important for getting your measurements correctly and ensuring a smooth run. So I just want to make sure you follow those instructions. And if once you get them and you're having trouble understanding, we would love the feedback so that we can revise our instructions. All right. So once you've finished your calibrations and you're ready to run, let me show you how to set something up. So I'm going to cancel out of this menu. All right, and turn it back around. Okay, so one nice feature of the SPIFE Nexus is the consumables tray. So this consumables tray comes with a slot for pretty much everything that you need. So we have our saline diluent, which goes in our diluent section. Sorry, I'm just going to move things around a little bit. There's our chilled reagent well over here with slots for all of our antisera, as well as 2 diluent slots. In the first one, we put our saline for diluting samples during IFE, and then a pipette wash, which comes into play during antisera application, goes in the second slot. And from there, I'm just going to load, it's probably wobbly. From there, I'm just going to load the rest of the reagents in their designated wells. And this is cooled as long as the machine remains on. All right, and so also we have our stain cups. So these stain cups, the way the SPIFE Nexus spreads stain is quite different from the SPIFE Touch. So instead of soaking the gel in stain, the stain is dumped onto the gel and then spread with a roller bar. So these are our stain cups, and you'll be able to pipette from this aliquoted bottle, and which comes with enough stain for 10 gels into these stain cups. And then the stain cups just go into our reagent bar, along with a glass spreader bar that hangs between these hooks. And it should be able to spin freely. All right, next, we'll talk about blades. So The blades go into this applicator assembly, which looks very similar to the SPIFE Touch, except that it's free floating. We also have these great templates, and these templates will tell you the name of the test that you're using, and they have a barcode that's scanned at the beginning of the test to ensure that your blades are in the correct position. So just like a SPIFE Touch, we'll load the blades in. Let me see if I can do it left-handed. Load the blades in. And then we have our blade weights, just like the SPIFE Touch. All right. And then for IFEs, you may have wondered how we blot off excess antisera. And for that, we have our blotter weight. And it already has an adhesive blotter applied, but I'll show you how to apply another. So these are adhesive blotters. Let me go grab another one. All right. So we have this guide that just sits easily over the sponge area of the blotter weight, and a fresh blotter with adhesive strips on it. And it just falls easily down in there. Put light pressure, remove the guide, and put the weight back into position with the green dot facing forward. This is another scanning barcode where at the beginning of a test, it will check to make sure that your blotter is in place. And if you have it turned around backwards, it won't read it. If you fail to put it in correctly, it won't read it. So that's a great safety feature to have, but you do want to make sure that you have a fresh blotter on for every test. And then once all of this is ready, you can just slide it back into place, just like that. Just slide it back into place. And it slides over this part, which is the electrophoresis platen, where most of the activity occurs in the SPIFE Nexus. All right, and the last piece we need to start a run, or a couple, I suppose. You'll be used to these, our normal trays. Now included is a barcode that makes sure that you have the correct tray when you're starting your test. And that goes right into the tray section. And then a cassette. So this is a new feature for the SPIFE Nexus. This will actually hold your gel throughout the entire process. It comes in two pieces. The bottom one is laid down first. And then let me open up the package here. All right, and then you'll take your gel in its cassette. And for this machine, we like to blot it in the clamshell because that's just easier than laying it down first. And you will need to lay down either DI, or we recommend rep prep on your platen. Two milliliters should suffice, just like a normal SPIFE Touch. And then once your gel is in place, you just roll it down as you would on normal SPIFE Touch. Goes down easily. And then just snap the top of the cassette on. You'll notice it's magnetic. And if you were to try to put it down the wrong direction, it will not snap into place because the magnets oppose each other. So it snaps down like that with the barcode reader in the top, or with the barcode in the top corner. All right, so now we're all set up to run. I just want to point out a couple of the pieces that we haven't talked about so far. So this is our platen cover, and it's where our electrodes are for electrophoresis. So the bottom side of it has two electrodes and these pegs which connect to the machine. During a run, it's brought forward for electrophoresis, and also to cover the gel to keep it from drying out while the sample is being loaded into the sample tray. All right. And then we want to make sure we have our samples down in our sample handler. So the test I just set up for, you might have recognized it. It's an IFE 9. So I have 9 tubes. So I have 9 tubes within our tube rack. However, our sample handler does hold up to 100 or 10 rows of 10 racks of 10 tubes for an SPE 100. So I just load it into the starting position, which is all the way at the right side, and close the door. You'll also notice that that spreader tip, can you switch to 1? You'll also notice that that spreader tip is in position. There is a spreader tip tool. You'll have to install this before the first time you run, but afterwards it'll just stay in position. So that spreader tip tool puts that in there. The SPIFE Nexus will alert you for most pieces that are missing. So if you try to start a run and you don't have, let's say you don't have your dryer cover installed, or if you have it installed incorrectly, or if you don't have your spreader tip installed, it will alert you to all of those things so that you have a chance to correct that before the run begins.
Emily, can I just interrupt you for 1
Yes.
second? Can you show them the orientation one more time of the spreader tip? Because I know that sometimes it's
Yes.
confusing whether it's right side up or upside
Yeah,
down.
definitely. All right, so if you want to get in on this. So the spreader tip actually sits to where the broad side is at the top, and it keeps it from going too far down in. So the spreader tip sits in the shape of a T.
So this is,
Nope, nope.
no, okay, go ahead.
Want me to
Yeah,
put it
you're
there?
good.
All right. So the spreader tip slides back in, and that's where it'll sit. And you'll notice it'll snap into place. We have a clip there that makes it snap back into place. So it's always in the same position when the pipette comes to pick it up. Could you put it back on the screen, and I'll show how to start up a run.
Let's try it and see what happens when we switch to the screen. We're live on the screen now.
Great. All right. So to start up a run, you'll just press your start bar here, and you'll see a menu that includes a drop-down bar where you can select the test that you would like to run. Right now, I'll go with an IFE 9 because that's what I have set up on the Platin. And then here you can turn on and off each process individually. And you can control your dilution scheme. So the normal scheme is set up to be 1 to 3 in the fixative lane and 1 to 5 in the rest. But that's customizable. And to do that, you just highlight and select new dilutions for any lane of any sample. Or you can highlight the entire lane and choose a dilution for the entire sample. All right, and once you're ready to begin, oh, I forgot to prime it, and that's a good note. So when you're ready to start a test, if you have not primed it yet that morning, that's one of the daily maintenance activities. So it's just to prime the machine. We have a prime button both at the top in this toolbar, and if you've already set up your run and have your dilutions as you like them, you can use the prime button within the start menu as well. And what the prime does is it pulls fluid through the system so that there are no air bubbles that could affect sample aspiration. So it's important to prime every morning just to ensure a smooth run and to wash that pipette. All right, so if I now had everything in place, I could press start run after I close the door. And the SPIFE Nexus begins checking to make sure I have each piece in place. If I had not had my dryer cover in place, I would have gotten a warning. If I didn't have each of my individual components, it's checking for my cassette now. It'll go to each individual place, make sure all my components are where they should be to begin a test, and then it'll start the run. I'll stop it at that point so you don't have to sit here and watch an entire run. But it goes through the entire checking process. And then it'll begin the run. So do we have, while this is starting up, do we have any questions so far about setup or about starting a run of the machine? Yeah, I think Dave is- oh, hey. I can't hear you. I think you're talking, Joe, but I can't hear you.
Yeah, I have to find my button to press to unmute. The spreader tip,
Yes.
is that just one tip through regardless of which test? I mean, it's one tip that we're going to just use, or do we change it? Is it an accessory? Is it a?
It is an accessory. I'm glad that, oh, that's the fan turning on. So it is an accessory. I'm glad that you mentioned that. We recommend changing the spreader tip once a month. We include that little tool to help you pick it up. We recommend changing it once a month, but for the month, pretty much as many runs as you want to do with that same spreader tip should be good to go.
So it can be used, so even if they're running different assays on the same day or within days or between days, it's the same spreader tip, we just change it once a month.
Yes, we have a very thorough washing protocol during the test. So the spreader tip gets washed every time it's used. So it's used to lay down one row of one type of Antisera, and then it is immediately washed before it's put back into its home position. So it's good to go for a full month.
Okay, thank you.
Oh yes, and the tip never actually goes into the Antisera bottle. It's picked up after the Antisera is aspirated and only used to dispense the Antisera in a line. Yeah. And then it's washed and immediately put back before the next Antisera is Antisera. All right, so I stopped that test and the green light is flashing to let us know. Oh, I'm not sure you can see that. There's a status indicator light on top. Thanks. There's a status indicator light up here. When the green light is solid, it means that there is a run in progress. And when the green light is flashing, it means that the run has finished and your gel is ready to be, unless you stopped it before the end of the run, then your gel is probably ready. So at the end of a run, I'm just going to kind of show you the movement of the gel throughout the machine. Could you focus just in on the chamber and I'll move it around. Thank you. That's perfect, yeah. So throughout the test, most of the time your gel stays on the platen here. It's covered during sample loading to make sure that your gel doesn't desiccate while sample is loading. And then afterwards it's uncovered. Your blades are brought forward and dipped in your sample and then dipped onto your gel. And then your gel is covered again for electrophoresis. And then you'll have various drying steps throughout where the platen warms up to dry out the gel to the proper dryness. And then you'll have the Antisera step where the antiserum is aspirated and dispensed in lanes across your gel, which we can demo that for you if you're interested, or you can just wait to see it yourself in a few days. But it dispenses antiserum, and then the blotter is brought forward to blot excess antiserum. And this next part is the first time your gel is going to move, but the claw will come forward and pick up your gel and move it into the washing chamber where it will wash off any excess antisera. And then it can move back to the claw will do all of this, but it will move back to the platen where the stain will come forward, dump, and be rolled across your gel so that it can be absorbed and attached to those proteins. After that, it's washed again and then alternately dried in our drying chamber and covered while it's dried. And then when it's dry and ready, your gel will be automatically deposited into the scanner. I'm a lot more clumsy about it than our machine is. It'll automatically be deposited into the scanner and pushed out, and it will be here waiting for you at the end of the run. So when that happens, the scan is automatically pulled up on the screen, and you'll be able to see and edit it and have the finished gel for your reference. There's also the option of, and the recommended option of using a barcode, which can be applied right on this side of the gel. And that will be scanned at the beginning of the test during the pre-start scan. And that gel barcode ID will be integrated into the work list as the gel ID. Are there any questions about that, about how it moves? So we can talk about maintenance a little bit. Oh, hey, Joe, go ahead.
Sorry, I'm full of questions.
Love it.
So when the first sample is done, the gel is scanned, it goes through all of that all the way until, and then it pops out at that little slot on the right-hand corner.
Yes.
While it's going through the wash and the dry, is another gel being loaded onto simultaneously? I mean, are two samples being simultaneously done, or do we have to wait for that first one to pop out so that we have to manually re-put in the gel cassette?
Right, we'll need to wait for the run to be completed so that you can replenish your consumables and begin the process over again. Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Yes, no problem. All right. So we can talk a little bit about maintenance now. So as I mentioned, it should be primed every morning. Then we also talked about the spreader tip, which should be changed once a month. Also, your electrodes need to be cleaned on your electrophoresis platen cover. And we have a very easy maintenance function for that in the software. It's under the maintenance section. You'll just click clean platen cover. It'll bring the platen cover forward, and then you'll be able to wipe off the electrodes just as you would with a lint-free cloth in the Spiffy Touch. You'll do the same thing to the fixed electrodes on the cover, and then place it back on the platen, and there will be a prompt for it to move back to its home position. And you'll just want to do that. Probably, I would recommend it every day, but at the very least once a week. Other than that, we recommend flushing the fluid lines with bleach. I believe we're recommending that once a week. And we have maintenance functions for that in our maintenance menu as well to prompt you through the cleaning process. All right, are there any other questions? Anything I forgot?
Maybe just going back and looking at some of the kit configurations. The participants are new to the fact that we're using a ready-use stain.
Right.
Some of the actual kit components, the differences compared to a standard Spiffy Touch kit might be.
Yes, of course. So the Spiffy Nexus uses a lot of similar components, but in a different way. So we use Antisera, but instead of flooding lanes, it gets laid down in rows by the machine. And this actually allows us to use about 50% less Antisera for the Spiffy Nexus.
And no template.
And no template to clean. Yes, that's a good point. The scrubbing templates is not my favorite thing. So having no template to clean is very nice. You just have that one tip that you change out once a month and you're good to go. Also, it uses much less stain. So instead of having to make up a full liter of stain for every 10 gels, instead, this tiny little bottle contains enough stain to run 10 gels, and it just gets aliquoted into these cups and then dumped and spread across the gel during the process. I can demonstrate that if you'd like. Okay. All right, so I have the stain already in the machine, and you can zoom in on that if you want. Close this, start. And like I was saying before, I can choose from my start menu any process that I want to run. So I'm going to leave only reagent stain application selected. And then I can press my start button. And it's still going to go through the scanning process, but this time our pre-start scan is only going to check for the components necessary for the steps that I selected. So instead of checking all the pieces, it only checks to make sure that I had my cassette in place for the staining process. So it's about to move into position and dump the stain. Oh, it's waiting for our platen to get to temperature at the moment. So you're able to control the temperature of the platen while you do these processes. And it can go from a chilly 12 degrees, which is what it stayed at for most of the process. And it can be heated up to about 50 degrees. So now our platen is at temperature and we're about to dump the stain. A nice smooth process. Even if the bar doesn't appear to be rolling, that's not a problem. Our gel is not at ideal conditions right now for stain distribution. It's more wet because I didn't do any of the electrophoresis process. So it's going to absorb stain a little bit differently right now than it would the maintenance. But you can see that it spreads smoothly across. And for a programmable number of cycles. And then when it's finished, the run will complete because this is the process I have selected. And that allows us to, instead of using a full liter of waste, that was a total of less than a milliliter of waste, or of stain for this trail. Okay, so once a week maintenance, for once a week maintenance, I would recommend that you wipe down your electrodes on that platen cover. And that you also flush the fluid lines of the machine with a 10% solution to prevent any growth in the tubing. And we have options for both of those maintenance procedures in our maintenance menu. Would you like to switch to 2? Thank you. Or to 1. There we go. So in our maintenance menu here, we have our clean platen cover option, which will bring forward that platen cover. Go ahead and click it down. It brings forward the platen cover so you can then remove it and wipe down the electrodes, which will begin to soot after a while, just like they do in the SPIFE Touch. And this is just a once a week maintenance, just to make sure that you don't end up getting more resistance during your electrophoresis steps. And from here, I can wipe down my electrodes with just to make sure they're not building up soot. And then I'd put it back onto the platen, and you can see the screen is giving me a prompt, and all I have to do is press OK, and it'll move that platen cover back to where it was. And similar processes are in place for flushing the lines of the machine with bleach. Just a quick cleaning procedure, either once a week or once a month. All right. Are there any other questions?
What happened if a blackout happened?
Oh, okay, hold on. Let me read the full comment there. Oh, if it was power. No, if you lose power entirely to the machine, if you lose the power entirely to the machine, it will not remember where it was. We do have a safety function in place to where if it was holding something, it doesn't just drop it upon startup. You don't have to worry about it damaging the machine. It does know that it was holding an item, and it will give you kind of a safety move menu to where you can move that item to a safe place to release it before the motors reinitialize. So it won't damage your machine, but it also will not remember where you were in your previous test. Yeah, but they do make, sorry. Go ahead.
The operator knows where they were.
Yes.
They can attempt to salvage the gel.
Absolutely, you can attempt to salvage the gel, especially because we have a run log that's created during the test. You don't even have to have been in the room. You can look at your run log and see the last executed process. And then, like I showed you, you can start from any process in the test to recover that gel.
Where is that red log? You don't
That
mind my
run log,
asking.
yeah, let me show you. Hold on, it's got to take the platen cover back to where it was. But you just have to go to maintenance, and there will be a section for the logs. And you can search through the logs for, I think it holds up to the past 23 run logs. You can download them from there and save them if that's something you want to do. But if you just allow them to accumulate, it will delete it after either 23 or 25 run logs, just to prevent excess space being taken up on your hard drive.
And how long is a gel good on the instrument should a blackout occur? So let's say the blackout occurs for 5 minutes. Sometimes in Thailand, we can reach up to 45 minutes. Will that gel on the machine still be good? Can we still salvage that one?
It depends on what process it was in, obviously. But one way to preserve the life of the gel is to cover it while it's on. I imagine that you do this on the SPIFE Touch if that's what you're dealing with right now, where you would cover it to keep the moisture level in the gel from changing while you're waiting for power to come back up. You could do something similar here where you even just bring that cover forward by hand and put it over the platen. That would preserve some moisture so that your gel would be more likely to be recoverable when the power came back on.
It's the same Agros formulation as the SPIFE.
Yes, our gels are the same Agros formulation for the SPIFE Nexus as they are for the SPIFE Touch. So whatever you're doing to preserve your process right now would work for the SPIFE Nexus as well.
Okay, thank you.
Emily,
Yes.
Can we go through each, since they see the Quick Scan Touch Plus software in the lower part, can we go through each one of the icons on the software for the SPIFE Nexus so they know where things are? And when they are?
Yes, of course. I didn't know how well they could see that because there is a bit of glare. Let me.
And while you're doing that, Emily, we're gonna switch so Carrie Franks can say hi to JoJo. He's gonna
Oh, great.
depart, and so
Hey, JoJo.
You can.
Hi, Carrie.
right over. Carrie.
There you go.
You gotta come up.
Yeah.
We only see your chest.
All right. I'm too tall, I guess.
Yes, you are. Hi, now I see your handsome face.
Good to see you. Haven't seen you in a couple of years. Always
Yep.
good. Mom and Dad doing great?
Mom and Dad are well. They're sitting behind me, but I have the background blurred just for respect.
Okay. Well, tell them I said hello.
Okay, I'll do that right now.
You'll probably see Carrie in the Asia focus group too when we do that. So.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Okay, I got Suwana walking up.
Good to see you.
นี่เข้ามาอีก
Oh,
Okay.
Hi อยู่ไหน
hi. Good to see you.
Hi how are you
I'm good. And I hear you're good.
good
You like Vegas?
ชอบเวกัสใช่ป่ะ
yeah I like it I like it good to
All right.
see you
Good to see you. See you later. Thanks. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Are we sure that we're still being blurry when we switch over to this?
I think the problem is when
I bet it's because we're splitting it.
I think to look at a picture. How does that work?
So can you see it more clearly now than you could before the screen that we're sharing with you? Can you read the individual items? Yes, okay, awesome. So at the top, we have a start menu. And that's what I was displaying before, where you can choose any number of pre-programmed tests that we have. And from there, you can choose to turn on and off individual processes. And you can choose in any process that has dilutions.
Let me switch around.
Yeah, pardon me. All right, and if the process or if the specific type of test includes dilutions, you can change all of your dilutions here. It also allows you to unlock the door, which my door is open at the moment, but if you forgot to put something in, you can unlock the door from this screen. You can prime if you forgot to prime for the morning. That's a 2-minute process that runs fluid through the lines to make sure that you're ready for accurate sample aspiration. And then start run obviously starts whatever run that you have set up in the rest of the menu. You also have a rescan button here. So if you have a gel that's previously completed, but you need to rescan it for some reason, you can just place it on the platen, press the rescan button, it will come read the gel ID and then take it directly to the scanner and rescan it into the work list that has that corresponding gel ID. And then we have a cancel button, which can clear this out. All right. And then next we have a stop button, which is only illuminated during a test. So if for any reason you need to stop whatever's going on, you can press that button. It'll ask you if you're sure. And then once you confirm that you want the test to stop, it will finish the next movement that it's making and then home all of the pieces and stop the run for you. Then we also have our prime up here, which is usually after I initialize the machine for the morning, I press that prime button and it primes while I'm getting everything set up on my consumables tray. We have an unlock door button for if you need to get into the main area, which is locked during the remainder of the run. Once you start the run, the door stays closed. If it opens for any reason, then your test will be stopped for safety reasons. We also have our light button, which turns off and on the lights in the gantry. If it's too bright for you, you can always turn it off. And then we have our setup button. And here's where you can alter any of your tests or your sample trays, or if you want to alter what the different indicator lights do, this is the menu where you can do that. And we're set up for a language function later. Right now, English is the only option, but we are set up to include other languages in the future. But here from your tests, you can select any test you like, and you can add a test. We even have export and import functions. So if for some reason you need a specialized test created for you, we can do that and then email you a file which can be easily imported into your SPIFE Nexus.
In other words, if they want to increase their electrophoresis time or
Yes.
something before they would adjust that on screen, we could create them a protocol though, and then we would send them that.
Absolutely. There is still an option for adjusting many of the parameters as you would have done before on the SPIFE Touch. But if you'd like us to create a new test for you, that's something that we can easily do and then email it to you and you'll have it to import immediately. Yes. And then we have print options, but mostly edit. And you can go to your sample loading process and change the amounts if you're for some reason needing to change the amount that you aspirate or want to change the wash cycles. And then in gel prep, we have all of our processes listed here. And once they're selected, you can go in and change a number of variables about that step. And then we have OK, which OK always saves everything that you've done, and cancel closes this box without saving any of your changes.
Does it give you a confirmatory when you hit OK? Does it ask you again if you're going to save the changes, or does it just do it?
No, I believe it just saves those changes. Yes, but it does have a secondary. It goes back to this screen, and if you were to press cancel on that screen, none of the changes that you made would be saved. Also, you have your default options. So if you change any of this and it's not the way you want it, you changed something you didn't mean to, you can go into default settings and just select the default test that we have in there. And it's based on test type as well. So it's listing all of the serum immunofixation options, and you can choose the default settings for any of those tests that come standard. Also, because there is so much digital tracking of what happens on this machine, if you somehow have custom settings that aren't saved and you need to recover those, if you send us a run log from the last test that you did with those customized settings, we can help you recover those settings and send them back to you. So there's a lot of recovery that can be done here.
Can you show them how that they can access the run log?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Thank you. That's the next button. So this maintenance button is also very handy. We have the wash pipette function, which just brings the pipette to the wash station and cleans it both on the inside and the outside. We have maintenance wash, which will help you to flood your lines with bleach during the normal cleaning process. And instructions for that are in the operator's manual. We have the clean platen cover, which was demonstrated before. Test calibrate takes you to that calibration menu, and view logs right here is where you're going to go to find any sort of run log. So once you hit view logs, it'll pop up this screen. You can open logs and then search. Right now we have, we're searching by log type, and this is error logs. But if we could also go to startup logs, which will tell you if you had any sort of issue in starting up. If for some reason the machine said that it did not initialize properly, you can go here to the startup log and see what happened, or send us that log and we'll tell you what happened. And then there is run logs. So we have this list of run logs. It'll usually be 25 long, and you can select and open, and it'll give you a lot of information about the processes that were selected and the setup of the test that you just ran, as well as what actually happened. So at what height we aspirated fluid, and what times certain processes started and ended. And this is where you'll also want to come, if you do have a blackout, you can go, when the power comes back on, you can go to the very end of the run log, and it will tell you the last process that began. So this is sample load end because we only did a sample load in that last run. But it might say destain, and you would know that the last process to run was destain and you were about to go into your dry step. You can also search within logs for certain words if that's what you want. And then clear log, close log, you can print the log, or you can just close out of the entire thing. So we have.
So if we were troubleshooting with the customer, with the engineers, we might have them go to that search function because we know that'll help bring up what you're.
Yeah, we might know exactly the word that we're looking for, how it's going to be logged, whatever problem you're finding, or you can just download the log and send it to us and we can search for it ourselves as well.
That was my next question. How do we download the log?
All right, so view logs, open. I think that you would print it to a PDF, but let me make sure.
Yeah, if we could do that, then that would be easy. And then we can just use the search in the PDF.
Yes, so we have Microsoft print to PDF. Oh, I selected fax. Microsoft print to PDF. I'm standing at an angle, so it's difficult. But we have Microsoft Print to PDF, and when you click OK, it'll save it wherever you want to on the desktop or on a flash drive that you've inserted, and it'll save it as a PDF, and you can search through there.
Thank you.
No problem. All right, and then we have backup and restore as well for if you have your setup in a different situation than is normal to our SPIFE Nexus. You can back up everything as it is now, and then if something goes wrong, you're able to restore it. So I don't want to mess with those functions too much right now, but they're there in case you need them. So. All right, are there any other questions regarding the maintenance menu? There's a lot of handy features here, and they're all outlined in our operator's manual. So if you have any questions, you can first look in the operator's manual, or if there's something you can't find, you're welcome to contact us.
I just want to add that this particular instrument has been moved all over the place.
Oh yeah.
It's been on the road with us,
Yeah.
several states, and so it's back here, it's functional. Maybe if there aren't any questions right now, since we wanted to kind of start with the setup, do we have we know what the most common things that are out of adjustment once we moved it. Do we have the basic jigs just so we can show, since they don't have them in their hands yet? I know there's a kid over here. Maybe Lance can hand Emily some of the things that you're going to need to calibrate certain things. And maybe we can show some of the marks inside that how it calibrates.
Try.
Start with the tray. Right. I think everybody might agree that just looking at some of the basic calibrations might be valuable. Is there a possibility that they might uncrate the instrument and it doesn't need any calibration?
There is a possibility. We always want you to check first, just so that you don't find yourself in the middle of a run and something doesn't move to the place it was supposed to. But chances are the adjustments that will need to be made will be very minute.
Yeah,
If there are any adjustments that need to be made, they'll be small. We just definitely want to make sure, especially with some of those more sensitive calibrations, everything's right where it should be.
Right.
Yeah, but yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. I've moved several machines that I then took a look at and didn't need to do anything to them. I just had to walk through to make sure.
Right.
Yeah.
And then while you're getting those out, just so if we go back to the bracket that we were talking about, do you recommend that if they move this from their office, once they've set up, done the IQ, OQ on the instrument, and they move it to the customer, should they reinstall the bracket when they move it?
Absolutely. That will keep, when there's no power being supplied to the machine, the pipette and the claw assemblies slide freely, and we don't want them to sustain any damage in transit. That shipping bracket will keep those pieces from sliding, bumping into each other, bumping into the wall. They'll keep everything in pristine condition during transit. So definitely use the shipping bracket when you move it to a different location.
And so the shipping bracket, when it's reinstalled, the instrument should completely be powered down.
Yes.
You're going to do this through the side door and
Yes.
some manipulation through the front door.
Mhm.
Are they going to damage anything if they move any of the gantry or any of the moving parts
No,
when they're installing this?
I mean, don't slam things together on purpose, of course, but it's very easy to move everything once there's no longer power being supplied to the machine. Once everything's disconnected, the pieces move very freely. In fact, would you like me to shut it down and show you?
Well, do you want to go through, maybe we'll do that
Oh,
last.
we'll do that last,
that
okay.
last.
But yeah, it's very easy to move by hand the gantry forwards and backwards, and then also the claw assembly and the pipette assembly from side to side. All those things move freely and can be manipulated to make installation of the bracket much easier. Yeah. All right, so some of the calibration jigs. So this one I've used quite a bit and it's got a little stain on it, but don't mind that. This will slip very nicely into your sample tray station here. You'll notice it has a groove, and you're just checking to make sure that a blade in the center slot of your applicator falls directly into that groove. So that's how you would calibrate that position. There are a number of positions. I think that there are about 15 claw positions, but most of them have very easy targets like this one, where there's a groove and you just want something to fall inside of it, and you can easily manipulate the numbers until that happens.
And you'll find that in the calibration menu in the
Yes,
software.
and that's in the calibration menu in the software, and we have instructions for that for you to follow. This is a fun one. So we have our reagent station calibration jig that just falls back down into that back corner. And when you go to that position, you'll just lower it so that you can, this piece no longer moves when you tap it. So you don't even have to be able to see down into that well. The pipette will lower down in there, and then you'll jog it down slowly until you can no longer flick it backwards and forwards. It's a pretty easy calibration.
There's a lot of movement where you use just small increments. Maybe we can just
Yes.
use that as one example of how to move it.
Yes,
on how those
absolutely.
Slight movements.
And
Just to give everyone an idea of when you're doing a calibration, they're all very similar.
yes.
Doing one may be valuable since you have that one in there right now, just
Yeah,
to
of
show how
course.
small
let me
number
go.
changes.
All right, so that would be a pipette position. So I would go to calibrate. All right, so now we're on the pipette calibration screen. That particular position is called, let's see, it's called reagent storage. You'll notice there's no X and no Y for this position. Similarly with the wash station, there's no X and no Y to calibrate. That's because the X's and Y's of those positions are calculated by the machine from your tray station value. So this tray station X and tray station Y, the machine automatically calculates these other X's and Y's from your tray station values. So you'll want to go in order. I always recommend going in order for the first time you calibrate it, but after that, it's not really necessary. If there's one calibration that needs changing, you don't have to walk through an entire process. You can just go back and manipulate that one number. Yeah. But for the first time, or when you're checking through it for the first time, I recommend going in order. And this is just a Z calibration. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to select this calibration, reagent storage, and press move to. And now you can see that the pipette is pressing down onto that jig to where it can no longer move freely. To change that calibrated position, I could just use our jog buttons over on the menu. And if I jog it up a little bit, I just tap it once and I'll tap it again. Now it can move freely, and I can jog it back down if I want to change those calibrations again.
Many of your calibrations are resistance type calibrations. So,
Yes.
it doesn't take, a whole lot of effort, really minute adjustments.
Yes.
And it still works very well within those limits of the resistance type jigs.
Yes. Yeah, so we have a lot of things based on feel and a lot of upper and lower limits. And a lot of our calibrations are robust. The more sensitive positions are going to be the pipette positions, but especially with our claw, there's a lot of give there where they only have to be so close to really work. So they're pretty easy to find a good position where everything is going to work very smoothly.
Do we want that thing to move easily or not move? Sorry.
No, that's okay. So you want to lower it to just where it stops moving when you flick it. Yes.
Okay.
And that will be in the instructions as well.
There's quite a bit of forgiveness. I mean, there's
There
subjectivity
is,
there.
yes.
It accounts for that.
Yes, absolutely. The things that are more sensitive have more what we call no-go type calibrations. So when you're calibrating the Z on the platen, for instance, let me move this. When you're calibrating your height on this platen, you'll use two feeler gauges. One should slide under easily, one shouldn't. And then, oh, thanks. These, you can disconnect these You'll only need 2 of them, but you'll get an entire set. I usually have them disconnected, but I left my disconnected ones back together. So you'll have one, and the instructions detail which one should slide under and which one shouldn't, but you'll have one that needs to slide under easily and one that needs to stop and not slide under at all. And that makes it a very simple calibration, very easy to see. Can you see that at all?
Do it again. I think you can see it
Okay, so
better.
this one should not be able to slide underneath. There's this one, should slide under easily. And that's how you calibrate that position. It's a very simple one. It's an important position to calibrate, but because it's so important, we've given you the tools to make it very easy and very on point. All right. Great. Oh, do we have any questions about calibration? You will get detailed instructions on how to do this. And of course, we're always here for consultation, especially if you run something afterwards and it doesn't look exactly like you hoped it would. We can tell you just by looking at it what happened there. So.
So are there any questions about starting the instrument up, about calibration, about running tests? We showed you the immunal fixation because it really has the most steps. It has the most
Yes.
options for customization.
Yes.
Serum protein is even easier. Again, you're going to load your blades, different style blades, obviously,
Yeah.
for different assays, but, essentially you're still going to dump stain.
Yeah, blades, stain, sample, and sample tray. And that's pretty much it for serum protein. It's IFE, but even easier.
Right. The key thing, one of the big difference, blades, we mentioned stain, and then the double blotter D is
Yes.
very important to make sure that,
Yes.
that you change that when you're running the test again.
Would you like to see the installation of the double blotter D again? Okay, great. So let me cancel out of this menu. And when you cancel out of the calibration menu, if you happen to make a mistake, none of it gets saved into the calibration file and everything goes to the home position. All right, so to install a new blotter, you just need your new blotter and the guide, which will slip right over the blotter weight. So we can pull our consumables tray straight forward and then just flip over our blotter. I usually just set it right on the edge. It fits perfectly. And then the old one peels off easily. Even when it's damp, it peels off, no problem. Place your guide over. It will only fit one way. So see how it fits snug here? If I accidentally turned it the wrong direction, it wouldn't fit and it would slide right off. It only fits one way, so it just plops down on there. We have, sorry, my nails are getting in the way. We have adhesive strips. We just peel off the cover. And these similarly will only fit one way. If you try to put it down in there the wrong way, it looks square, but it's not. So you won't be able to make contact if you try to put it on that direction. Ensuring a perfect fit every time. Then you can just remove and throw away all your old pieces and flip this back into position.
Emily, what happens if they don't use the guide to put the double blotter D on?
If you don't use the guide to put the double blotter D on, you may end up crushing your gel block or not blotting a part that you wanted to blot. Basically, the blotter won't align perfectly with the lanes of the antisera. There is quite a bit of forgiveness there, but we always recommend using it just because you'll get the perfect blot every time if you use the guide.
A much prettier gel.
A much prettier gel. That's it. Yeah.
At least,
Yeah. It probably won't ruin your entire run, but you'll get a much prettier gel if you ensure that the blotter is in the correct position every time.
Now, I think one thing that
Joe.
Sorry. Does the machine know if they changed the blotter D or not?
No, however, if you find that it knows whether the blotting piece is installed, but not whether or not the operator changed it out. However, when you go into your test setup, you do have a section where if you're having that problem a lot lately, you can go into pre-start checklist. We have an entire panel for it, and anything you type in here will pop up when you try to start a run of this type of test, and it'll actually make you check off items that that ensures that you've done those actions. So you could type in change blotter, and then it would pop up and say, hey, change blotter. Prime system, anything that the machine doesn't directly check for. It doesn't check that you've added stain, so you could put that one in there, and just make sure that you can choose to show or not show. If you don't like the pre-start checklist, you don't have to use it, but it's a very handy feature for if, especially if you have a lot of turnover in your labs, or sometimes I just forget things every once in a while, but having a list there is really helpful. And as soon as I press start run, it'll make sure I did all the things that I asked it to remind me of, and then proceed with my run.
And I've noticed that in your work, that you just rotate trays through. So another way the customer could do is purchase an extra tray,
Yes.
pull the one that's used off, and then reload a tray. That way they know that they're reloading a new tray with new accessories every time.
Yes, just like I had it when I first set it on the Platin, with each individual consumable in one of these allotted spots on the consumables tray. It was all there ready to go. So you can, when it's finished, your gel will pop out of the front, and you can slide the consumables tray forward, set it to the side to dispose of everything in your own time, and slide a fresh and ready one back in, and with all of your consumables ready to go, and you'll be ready to start the next test once you put a gel on.
Now, one of the things that some people may have some experience with is that we have had different series of sample handlers in the past.
Okay.
Are there any issues with the barcodes? Do they need to be positioned in a certain way in the racks? And what happens if they leave a cap on a tube?
So if you leave a cap on a tube, it will fail to sample, but you'll get an error to let you know.
Will it damage the needle?
I have slammed into a cap or two in my time, and it's never damaged the needle. So I can't promise it because I don't know what kind of caps you're using, but especially the rubber caps, I've left those on a time or two, and it's never caused
Much
any
more
problem.
robust than our old needles.
Yes. And then with your barcodes, this is just water for now, but as long as your barcode can clearly be seen, which camera are we using right now? As long as your barcode can clearly be seen through this slot, then the machine should be able to read it without any issue.
There was a question today from a customer about changing the minimum volume, the hold-up volume of the tube. That's set. We can't change that. We're at the tolerance of our current system.
Yeah, so you actually calibrate to what is the calculated height of the very bottom of one of these tubes. So your pipette is automatically going to go to the very bottom of the tube to get sample. It won't always, it'll stop when it detects fluid, but let's say you have a very small amount of fluid in there, it'll go to the point that it is calculated that you need that much sample to proceed. But if it doesn't find it at that point, it will plunge to the bottom of the tube and aspirate anyway to try to get anything out of that bottle, out of that tube that it can get.
So it works to minimize Q and quality not sufficient samples, things like that.
Yes, yeah,
but
it works to minimize the amount of sample that you need. We still have a recommended minimum volume for each test, but if you have almost nothing in there, it's going to get everything that you have. So, yes. But if your tube is,
Dominic?
oh, sorry, go ahead.
If the remaining sample is not enough for the rack, will the instrument continue to work?
Yes, so if it doesn't find enough sample, it will go to the very bottom of the tube and aspirate anyway, and then dispense that into the sample. It will get everything that it can and proceed with the run. But in the run log, you'll be able to see, it'll say insufficient volume. So that record will be there that there wasn't enough, but it's gonna at least try anyway. It's gonna get the most out of the amount of sample that you have.
I mean the remaining sample number. If the remaining sample number is not enough for the rack,
Oh, I see what you mean. So if your rack isn't full,
yeah.
so it will check every position up to the number that the test is set for. So in an IFE 9, it will go to each position and check for a sample. If you have a tube in it at all, it will bring the pipette down and try to aspirate a sample. However, if you leave it blank like this, it will skip over that. So if I had, thank you. If this was the sample rack that I was using, it would start at this end, it would sample from here, here, here. It would see that there is no tube here. So it would both skip this tube and it would also skip the sample 4 position on your tray. And then it would move to the next tube to sample. Even if this tube was empty, it will see that there is a tube and try to sample there. But if there is no tube, it will skip over that position and the corresponding position on your sample tray.
If it's missing a barcode or it's didn't read a barcode, it'll still look and see if the tube's there and it'll still run the sample. And you can manually change that later.
Yes, if it was unable to read your barcode, let's say it's in the wrong position, it will still sample from that tube and put it in the corresponding position on the sample tray. But in your work list, it will say no tube. You can actually change what it says. That's a programmable function. You can have it put in whatever message you want for when there was no barcode available, and then you can go enter in that patient data
You
later.
can customize the error message.
Yes,
That's
you
how
can.
the customer would like to.
Yes, but it won't stop your run. It won't pause anything. It'll just let you know in the run log that there were no tubes there, and then in the work list that the information ends up in, it will let you know that there was no barcode to be found.
2 questions. The first one is, will the pipette also detect if there is a clot or anything that could probably clot the pipette at all within the tube? And the second question is, so how do we customize the error codes that you were mentioning?
Okay,
if needed?
so I'll show you that. I'll show you that right here. So here we're in setup. I'll go back to the beginning. We go to setup and we go to instrument and sample ID for no tube and sample ID for no barcode. So if it finds that there's no tube, so it's just going to skip over that, that position in the rack. In the run log, it will show no tube, and in your sample ID section of your work list, it's going to show this message, no tube. Now, if you had just a tube with no barcode, it will tell you that there was no barcode, and then you can customize these messages. And that's what's going to end up in your work list. Ooh, sorry. That's what's going to end up in your work list and in your run log. Those messages right there.
Question about the clock.
Oh, the question about the plot, yes. So there's no way to know that if there is a plot or some sort of debris in your sample. However, we do our best to minimize the depth past the surface of the fluid that the pipette plunges. So if you're using a serum separator, it's going to sense the fluid and then try to plunge only as far as it needs to into the fluid to aspirate, so that you can, with minimum volume, avoid the serum separator plug.
It's similar to the V8 technology when as far as that's concerned.
Yes. And yeah, that answer your question about clocks? Awesome.
What about some questions from Taiwan? There must be one. We can't give you an A on the test if there isn't a question. Li Tong, do you want to share anything that China has maybe experienced with the SPIFE Nexus so far to help Thailand and help Taiwan? If something maybe you've seen or China has observed?
I don't have any question. I
Okay.
don't have any question.
Is China happy with the SPIFE Nexus so far?
Please ask my engineer. I also realized the machine from the picture on my office. I don't go to the user. But the machine is some question I want to let my engineer tell you.
Yeah. So who do we have for the?
小慧，小慧，哎，wait a minute，你告诉他 ，please， you meet some question. I operated the machine very little, very little. I only see the machine don't operate.
Okay, that's okay. That's okay. Any other questions or any comments?
Emily, we calibrate the needle height on the position, the gel position. What means Z1, Z2, Z3 represent what?
Yeah, so you may have noticed there are 3 Z positions for some of those pipette heights. That's because it uses those 3 positions in 3 corners to calculate a plane, so that if your platen is a little bit raised in one area or a little bit lower in another, it can calculate that because it is flat. But if one edge is higher than another, your machine will automatically calculate that and you'll get a smooth Antisera application.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's the same process for calibrating each one of those. You'll just move the pipette to that position and then move the pipette to another position and calibrate, then move it to another position and calibrate.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Tony. So we must have some more questions. If not, maybe we should talk about how to, at the end of the day, or 2 things. End of the day, they shut the instrument down. Shut the instrument down to move the instrument.
Yes. So especially if you're working with a shared QST database, it's important to occasionally have all of your QST clients shut down at the same time so that your pool can refresh. But that doesn't have to be very often. We would just recommend shutting down your program and your machine at night, especially in case of power surges or anything like that. We don't want anything affecting your machine while you're not there. So shut it down at the end of the day, shut it down to move it. Would you like me to show you the shutdown process?
Yeah, why don't if we're at the stage now, I think it'd be a good idea to shut the instrument down. And then we'll go to the next stage and talk about how to prepare the instrument to move it when you go to do your installation at the customer site. Is that reasonable? Jojo, do you think that's a good idea next?
I have 3 questions. Sorry,
okay.
I'm full of questions. So question number 1 is about the sample rack. Could you please repeat again if the test tube cap needs to be removed or not? is there a limit to the tube height and the tube size? And can we use sample cups placed into the tube rack in case there are those who, you know, they use these plastic sample cup thingies? That's the first question. The second question is what we're going to be addressing anyhow is shut down the machine, how to pack up the machine properly for transporting, but also if the machine is moved within the laboratory from one room to another, what do we need to do? What do we need to prepare for that one as well? I mean, do those little, what did you call them? Those little, whatever things that you use for transporting it, do those need to be used if the machine is being moved from room 1 to room 2 or building 1 to building 2? Because in Thailand, they always like to move the machines. Don't know why, but it happens. So those are the 3 questions, please. Thank you.
Yeah, so we do take your caps off. Our pipette cannot pierce through your cap. It probably will not damage your pipette, but your run will be stopped and you will have to stop and take off your cap. Next, I'm sorry, could you repeat the rest of your questions regarding the tubes?
Yeah, sure. So I cannot tell from seeing here, but is there a limitation on the tube height, on the tube width, you know, the size of the tube? Because we have different tube sizings in Thailand. We have different tubes with different heights. And some of our clients, they just use those little plastic sample cups.
Nesting cups, right. Okay, so you can use nesting cups. We have tested it with nesting cups, and we have the recommended minimum volume is different if you're using nesting cups versus if you're using different sizes of tubes. So this is a standard 13 millimeter tube. So the most common sizes are the 13 millimeter tubes and the 16 millimeter tubes. These will hold both of those. Yes. And then I also, do you have, these fit in the bigger tubes? Do you have any of the bigger 16 millimeter tubes? So there's also another standard size of tube that's about, okay, thanks. That's about this much taller. That's usually the largest standard tube that's used. There is one bigger jumbo tube that doesn't fit in our machine, but for the most part, the 2 most standard size of tubes you will be able to use with this.
Just have the smaller inserts, not bigger.
Oh, there we go. And we do have nesting cups that fit in the top, and it can sample from the nesting cups. Is this the type of thing you're talking about?
Oh, no. But I'm going to make note that a nesting cup is okay and it fits into the tube. But our sample cups, they are those little, those like little plastic ones where it has a little conical bottom, and it's like, yeah.
Is it an Eppendorf tube?
No, it's not an Eppendorf tube, but that's another one that would come up is an Eppendorf tube. But these are the, I don't have a picture of it right now. Let me try to see if I can find a photo.
Okay, we have tried many different varieties. We've tested many different varieties of tube in these holders, as long as it's not larger than 16 millimeters across, because that's the limit of this opening. It does have these little brackets inside to firmly hold the 13 millimeter in place. But it will work with a variety of nesting cups as well.
Looking for fluid detection. So.
Yeah, it's fluid detection. So as long as you have a certain depth of fluid in there, and it starts lower than the height of a normal 16 millimeter tube, you should be good to go. It supports many different tube types. Yeah. The only type that, sorry, go ahead.
No. So based on that, and with what I'm not able to describe properly, this sample cup thing, I think we cannot use those sample cups. So this is just so that my team will know that I don't think we can use those sample cups that they have in Thailand, because we have to be able to put it into the tube. So that's why either a nesting tube needs to be used or the proper test tube needs to be used.
Yeah, I mean, you're welcome to send me a picture. I don't know what you're talking about, but you can send
Yeah, let me find
and
it.
I can tell you the limitations of the machine.
This
We
isn't
might be
the
able to
only
use it.
style of nesting.
No, this is not the only style of nesting cup. This is just the one we have on hand in the lab at the moment.
Some of them look like caps, actually, more like caps.
Yes. Yeah, there are many different types. If you send me a picture of what you have, I can let you know if our system can support it. I might even be
Okay.
able to get someone to try it.
All right, I'll do that. Thank you.
Oh, sorry, one more question. Emily. Hello.
Yes, hello. Tony, I can hear you.
Oh, okay. We running an IFE plate. We placed the 2 stand cups in the stand region dispenser. And what volume pipette we can stand into each of the cups? 400 micrometers or 350 micrometers?
These are the cups you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, so for an IFE, we recommend 400 microliters of sample in each of 2 tests or in each of 2 cups. So 400 microliters in this one and 400 microliters in this one, and you're good to go.
Okay, okay. Oh, okay, thank you.
And Jojo, I feel like you had a question that I forgot to answer. Did I get everything on your list?
There was, I think we're going to talk about it next, is transporting the
Okay.
machine between cities and between buildings and between rooms.
Yeah, basically, if you're going to be jostling it around a lot, like in the back of a vehicle, I would highly recommend putting on the shipping bracket. We move them from room to room in our facility without a shipping bracket, and as long as you're not rough with it, it seems to be okay.
Have you ever had to recalibrate it when you move it around the lab over there?
I check calibration every time, but if I do have to adjust something, it's a small adjustment, and it might have just been, different preference between me and the person before me. So it's a pretty robust calibration. Oh, thank you. It's a pretty robust calibration. When you move it from room to room, chances are you won't need to change anything.
Will the instrument tell them something, or is it just going to be the quality of the gel that's going to tell them that they need adjustment?
It depends on which calibration it is. Sometimes the movement will fail and the machine will let you know that the movement failed. Something didn't make it back into the spot that it was supposed to make it into. But a lot of the calibrations are just fine-tuned calibrations where your lines might look a little bit wavy at the end of the
But
test.
there are different locus that it looks for to see if it's within tolerance in those. So within tolerance, there are some things that it will automatically tell them though that it needs to be calibrated.
Yes, yeah, yes.
One more question.
Okay.
I hope. The UPS, uninterrupted power supply. What would be a good size for the SPIFE Nexus?
Oh, you know what? I don't have that information right now, but we have some in our lab. I can email you that information tomorrow morning. I don't remember the numbers, but I can email you that information, what we use.
Okay, thank you. We'll need that one because power fluctuates over there. Thank you.
No, I don't believe so. We can put it in there. All right, are there any other questions or want me to go ahead and shut the machine off? So I always slide everything back into place, but you don't necessarily need to if you're just shutting it off for the night. All right, could you pan around to the screen? So it shuts off just like most normal applications. There's an X up in the upper right-hand corner. And are you sure you want to close? Yes. That shuts down our application and brings us back to our desktop. And from there, you shut it down just like you would any Windows computer with the shutdown menu. And it takes a second, so don't panic if the lights don't turn off right away. It powers everything down slowly to make sure it does it in the correct order. And there we go. And I have an extra light turned on in there. That's what that is. All right. Okay, so to get it ready for shipping, I would remove all of the consumables, so that includes, and all of the accessories. Just remove all these pieces. Lance, want to take this calibration jig? All right, stack this on here. From here, I can just take my consumables tray and hand it to Lance. If you don't have a Lance, I suggest you get one. All right. And then you can remove your platen cover. And from here, you can see that now that the machine is powered down, it's very easy to move these motors by hand and to move your pipette assembly and your claw assembly by hand as well. Yes, all right. And so yeah, thank you. Do you have the space to come around on this side, Sharon? Oh, perfect. Awesome.
Emily, while you're moving, can I just interject for a second?
Of course.
In our installations that we've had internally, so far, we've been using a cart, and we have a spec for a cart. We're gonna build a cart. It's gonna be available.
Yes.
In a lot of cases, now this is shipping without a cart. I think what Jojo was implying also, or just maybe probably wants to know is, some customers are gonna want to put this on a bench. They see this as a bench top unit.
Right.
The main thing is they need to have access to the back and the side, or at least enough rotation. I was pulling it over. We actually use a device where it cranks and we move the system around, so that way people don't have to lift it.
Right.
But just so they know that, it does have to have, a space, a cushion around it.
Yes.
In the back side, and then access to the back.
Yes, access to the back. If you're going to be like maintaining, for maintenance, access to the back is necessary. And to this side, we have this access panel that allows you to, let's say a piece of a rubber cap did clog your pipette for some reason, which has never happened to me before, but you could just take off, you could just use this access hatch to access the pipette in the back. Sorry, Sharon, get out of the way. And then that unscrews very easily and unplugs very easily, or replaces very easily, and then can be reinstalled.
Let's go ahead and slide this all the way back so you can point the camera to there. So they can see very easy access to the pipette probe right there.
Yeah, so that's your, that place with little holes in it, that's your pipette assembly.
Is that white strip on?
Oh, no, but you can grab it. You just pull brute force.
It's gonna just turn it on.
Oh, okay. The gantry might be blocking you. There's one in the back too.
It is a bit.
Oh yeah, perfect. So I don't know if you can see that, but this is where the pipette exists, and it can be easily unscrewed and maintenance from here. This hatch is also where you'll put on the shipping bracket. So to do that, you bring the claw to the side, and the shipping bracket can be inserted. Like right here. Can be inserted so that it just clamps onto here. Clamps onto here, and then it will latch on. It'll move this forward. Oh yes, here we go. Here we go. And it secures to this panel right here, and it holds your claw and your pipette in place as it moves. And so that's where you will unscrew it from and unlatch it when you unbox your instrument.
Yeah, so they'll want to keep some cable ties handy.
Yes, you will need
Use the cable ties again.
two fresh cable ties every time you put the bracket on, but you can keep the screws. It'll come with 2 screws. I hope that you could see that, but we also have instructions with images in it. So if you need to, if you need access to those, I believe that they're in one of the manuals, but we can always direct you to those instructions. And here's our SPIFE Nexus, all quiet and peaceful for the night. Are there any other questions?
We've done several demonstrations with different customers in different settings. Like I said, China has been utilizing the instrument. The best thing to do is to get it out of the crate when you receive it and connect with us, and we'll help you from there. But really, we're anticipating that you'll have a lot of success. We haven't experienced a lot of problems with the system as we've moved it around. So, I listed some new people that you saw. I mean, you see Emily's here, you've seen some other names, Michael, Lance. We've added a lot of staff to support this product. So
we have 2 new messages as well.
Let me scroll down the messages also. I scrolled up right here. Glad you saw that. Or not, yes. There's that. I think those must have been.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we're just catching up on questions. Sorry, Joe, I didn't see that you posted them before.
And then Shengli, Taiwan said that they will contact us after the setup. So that's great. Yeah. We've dedicated a lot of resources to this, and so we have a very strong support capability with the instrument. We have obviously this training lab. We have electronic services. We have, I don't know, 10 or so that are just running continuously for durability. Personally, and I think our trainee, Leo, that was with us, I think was impressed to see that there must be 30 that are in different stages of being built right now.
Yes.
We're making a electrical engineering change right now, otherwise they'd be continuing to be built. But we're really prepared, to support this product and make this our new workhorse instrument in the field.
Yeah, and on the software side, we've been able to make it really robust lately. So it's a good, hardworking piece of machinery. Oh. Great.
Perfect.
It goes to that. You can scroll down.
Oh. All right.
So I think we're just looking for final questions. We're really glad that you joined us. I think the presentation makes the instrument look easy, but that's the idea. That's the purpose here. Easy setup, easy maintenance, easy user interface.
Yes.
Automation.
Yeah, very intuitive where all of the steps are to be turned on and off, to be set up and to be run. I've run most of our machines at Helena, and this is by far my favorite. I love working on this project, and it's very easy to use. If I was coming into a lab, this is the machine I want to use.
I can't believe nobody's asked though. Did you bring any finished gels so you can show them what the?
I did. I think there was some.
I think there's a
laying
couple
over
sitting
here.
here, so. Yes.
Yeah, I don't know when these were run. They're starting to fade with age, but they look really good. But it's.
In your opinion, you've run the SPIFE Touch. Does this instrument make the same quality gel that you get on a SPIFE Touch?
Yes. Yes. I often prefer the gels that come off of the SPIFE Nexus to gels from other instruments. Yes. Yeah.
Emily's one of the people on the engineering team that has run thousands of gels.
I have.
Literally.
Yeah.
More than that.
Yeah, probably 4 a day for a couple years now. So.
Yeah. As much as a very tenured lab person would have done, she's been there. So for her to tell you that this is robust and it's comparable to our semi-automated systems, means a lot. And it takes somebody that's done that kind of work to be able to find all the little issues that might come up with the instruments. So.
Yes, very thoroughly tested.
So one last call for any questions. Jojo, do you have any parting words that you want to say, or any comments, any feedback?
No, I wanna thank you guys. I know it's evening and it's late where you guys are, and I really appreciate it. To Taiwan and to Lee Tong, I'm sorry, I have a lot of questions and I didn't mean to take up your time, but thank you for bearing with me and all of my questions.
We wanted questions, but that helps
It's good
us.
information.
So, will we also have access to the recording made? Because I know my team will probably have to go through it again. I'm going to be translating all of my notes, going through with them after this. So, but other than that, I want to say thank you. We really appreciate it. I did check with my team and they told me that they think that they're able to install it with confidence. So
Great.
that is good for me.
And marketing will help us with the recording. I haven't taken one off of Zoom yet. I've done it from GoToMeeting before. They're not great recordings, great quality, but marketing can help us try to clean it up and make it into something useful. So yes, we will provide that because we're going to use it for our own learning purposes. We're developing training tools, just so everybody knows. In parallel with these in-person trainings, we're also going to be developing training videos and training tools.
Right.
Marketing and engineering, electronic services and applications are all working together right now on new tools to help with this new era that we've started with, post-pandemic, ups and downs with the pandemic.
Right.
So we're utilizing these things to create some things too that are going to be very useful, very exciting for the future.
Yes.
So with that, we will say goodbye to everyone. It's nice seeing I'll be looking forward to seeing everybody in person, hopefully in the near future. At least maybe by second quarter of next year, I can resume, countries receiving Americans. As long as the media doesn't make us look too crazy moving forward, hopefully I'll be invited to, and sooner than later, see everybody in person. So.